Welcome in, welcome all. A little 3 second delay there as my screen froze, but happy to have everyone here at the Dynasty After Party brought to you by Club Fantasy FFL. I'm Michael Sicoli, and as always, I'm joined with the legendary Joel Wirth. How are you today, Joel?
Awesome, man. Glad to have you back. Hope you enjoyed your trip.
Oh my goodness. Oh, it was amazing. It was winter down there, but their winter's like 60 degrees Fahrenheit at the
Right?
coldest. All right. Listen. That's the energy level I was at in the 2 weeks there. I'm back with forgot it. Repeat. But listen, that's the energy level we're gonna have for this show today because we're talking Eagles and Chiefs with the look inside series that we're rounding out today. Two teams that obviously are great for fantasy football because they both went to the Super Bowl because they can score a lot of points and things like that we like to see. So we're going to break those teams down as well as a few training camp headlines. But first, I just want to make sure you know who to follow. That's Club Fantasy FFL at Club Fantasy FFL on all social media, including Twitter, not X, but Twitter, as we were talking before the show. And Joel here, obviously, at the Joel Wirth, and myself at Michael __ Sicoli, because I was too slow to get the handle with just one. But let's jump right into it. Training camps, I would say training camps here, but it has been. It just doesn't feel that way for me. Man, a lot of headlines to break down. One of them that stood out to me, Chigoziem Okonkwo, according to head coach Mike Vrabel, Mike Vrabel said that he is struggling with his blocking currently, and it's something that he really needs to improve on. And this is someone that obviously a lot of people are talking about as a breakout candidate, a little bit, not as much since the DeAndre Hopkins signing, but things like this can keep you off the field. Any thoughts on the Chig situation, Joel?
Not really. I mean, it doesn't really matter if he can block or not. Or that's not really his forte. I know they want someone who can probably block just because their line struggled so badly last year, but I don't think him being able to block or not is going to be an impediment to him getting on the field. Like DeAndre Hopkins being there is a bigger problem.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to the scheme of how the Titans run this team and emphasis on running the team because, they led the league in 13 personnel. That's 3 tight end sets. They ran 12 personnel 30% of the time. Again, 2 tight end sets. So chances are he will always be one of those guys because they are not 3 tight ends deep. Most teams aren't. So I'm not too worried about that. And if he is struggling blocking, maybe that just increases his routes run, and maybe they slide him into the slot. Maybe they get creative with it. This is the Titans, so maybe not, but it's worth throwing out there as a thing. And it's something I wanted to note in case we randomly see his snaps drop, because pass blocking grades is not something that everyone's looking at, especially when it comes to tight ends, because it doesn't give us fancy points, Joel.
Yeah, at this point in camp, I think this is more Vrabel trying to light a fire under his ass than anything else, really.
Yeah, something for the young guys to look at. Anyway, in Baltimore, and talking about lighting a fire, because it's a bit of a fiery situation between J.K. Dobbins and the Baltimore Ravens. So maybe he's injured, maybe he's not. I don't think he is, Joel. Most people don't think he is. It's a contract dispute that's keeping him out of camp. The Ravens aren't sure when he's back. No one's really happy in this situation. They did open talks about extensions. Unlike Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, they are talking, but there isn't much leeway or news to go on beyond we'll see when he's back. So what's your current alarm level on with J.K. Dobbins? Someone we've talked about as a huge guy that we both like in this year's fantasy draft.
Yeah, definitely. It's concerning. Obviously, I'd rather he was there. I'm not panicking. I'm not dropping him in my rankings in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, it's a little. It's like what's the end game here, right? I think he could do himself. He may be getting some bad advice, right? I think he'd do himself a favor by just getting out on the field and showing the team he's committed to playing. But it's somebody's going to play hardball and somebody's going to throw the ball. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not dropping him at this point. It's way too early.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him. I'm not dropping him in ranks either. The big thing for me is how they used him at the end of last year. He is a very big part of their offense, and they can sign all the dusty running backs they want. Every year they do. But they gave him 14 carries a week on average from weeks 13 to 16. And every time he's been on the field, he's been excellent with it. Even when we've seen him be physically handicapped in a way of him being held back by his own body, and he still reps off a 40-yard run because he's just a really, really good player. Now, the dynasty angle of this and why contract talks really matter for us is that it's a 1-year situation. And if he hits the market, neither of us are going to be happy about it. So if you had to make a call right here and now, do you think that extension gets done before week 1?
No, I don't think they're going to extend him, at least
Yeah.
unless he's willing to take like I would say below market, but probably at this point market deal for a running back, which I mean, maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he wants just some security beyond this year. I get it. You know, the guy's coming off a fairly serious knee injury. So, but you hit on it. Like the guy averaged 7 yards a carry once he got healthy, came back into the lineup. And that's a great offense for him with Lamar Jackson taking a lot of attention. So I'd like to see something get done, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm not going to panic either.
Yeah, of all the holdouts, this is probably the strangest just because he's the –
I mean, he's there, right? He's in camp. He's in meetings. He's just not practicing. So,
yeah. And maybe it is an injury, but I think it's a true wink type of situation there. Next one over here, probably the biggest news of the week, Alvin Kamara. I initially wrote down on the show doc that a suspension is coming, and it came, but it was only 3 games. A lot of people would think it was going to be 6. I'm not a lawyer, but I imagine pleading down from a felony to a misdemeanor had a significant factor in Roger Goodell's decision with this. But Alvin Kamara, 3-game suspension. Now, obviously, everyone that drafted him at a huge discount is taking a victory lap right now. But dynasty-wise, how much does this change his value? Because every game that he's available to play means less time for Kendre Miller to make his mark or Jamal Williams to carve a role in this backfield.
Yeah, once the plea deal happened, I didn't expect a 6-game suspension. So this is kind of right in the wheelhouse of what I expected. Dynasty wise, he doesn't have much value. Like either way, even with the suspension, right? He wasn't that good last year. He only had like 3 good games. Otherwise, he was pretty mediocre. So, yeah, I don't think anyone's trading for him expecting to get more than just this year's production. So, 13 games, and that's probably it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the Saints are going to run the ball quite a lot. Only 3 teams had a higher run rate last year than the Saints, and then they went out and drafted a running back and went out and signed Jamal Williams. So, yeah, I think Kamara's going to get a lot of usage here, and the real interesting thing to me is, will Derek Carr throw to him? Because if you look back in 2020, I believe it was 2020, 2021, apologies. Derek Carr and the Raiders threw to the running back at the 2nd highest clip. Only the Falcons did more that year with a statue of Matt Ryan. Fast forward to 2022, last season, dropped to 18th. Maybe that's a McDaniels thing. Maybe that's the Derek Carr. But Alvin Kamara, if he is limited in terms of what he's doing, if he is slowing down, I still have faith in receiving ability to make up for inefficiency on the ground if that is the case. So are you holding out some hope on a really good year, or are you just expecting it to be an okay season that then rides into the sunset?
Yeah, I basically expect it to be 13/16 of what he did last year. I don't think there's any rejuvenation coming just because he's got 3 weeks off. I expect pretty much what he did last year, and he's gonna have a job next year, right? He's not gonna just go away. I don't expect him to retire in any way, but I doubt he's anyone's primary option next year, wherever he ends up.
Yeah, and ultimately, I've been using this news all week to try to buy Kendre Miller because I have been a vocal Kendre Miller stan all summer. I tweeted out a month ago that he's the guy that I want on my rosters because I think he's the guy that's going to be making those championship pushes in week 14, 15, 16, 17, all those lovely fantasy weeks. I think by then he's going to have a very significant role in this team. He's already off the pup, no injuries, no worries about the meniscus situation or MCL. I blank on which one it was, but
Meniscus.
Yeah, meniscus. So that's a good thing to see. And honestly, I am using it as a buy low window because the swings in reaction are always going to be significant. And I said that this was the biggest news of the week, Joel, but that was a lie. And you know what the biggest news of the week is. I'll even let you say it while I pull up the proper sound effect. Say it for me.
Marlon Mack.
Marlon Mack is back and better than ever. Zeke doesn't have a contract. Freaking Dalvin Cook doesn't have a contract. None of the great or good, whatever you want to call them, none of the known quality running backs got a contract before Marlon Mack here, who lands in Arizona. Listen, is this nothing? Is this just the meme? Or is it wrong to have some interest? Because a lot of people have been playing the guessing game of who's the RB2 behind James Conner. Is it Keontae Ingram? Could it be Marlon Mack now? And doesn't matter to begin with. But listen, Marlon Mack's back, baby. And we're going to have some glorious memes to be talking about throughout the season, I'm sure.
It matters so much in that James Conner is probably not going to play 17 games, so somebody's going to get those carries. Like Deontay Ingram is injured right now. Marlon Mack didn't even make it to the season with Houston last year, so I don't expect him to make it out of camp with Arizona, even as kind of running back desperate as they are. But yeah, no.
Yeah, it's a fun joke to bring up, but no. And he's also not. He's never been a good pass catcher. That's also something
he's never been good at anything, really.
Well, that's true. He was an okay runner before you just destroyed every part of his
he was okay. He wasn't good.
No, I know. And but my point is James Conner has lived on that volume and those dump downs and everything and being the true wide receiver 2 at times in that offense, and that's never been Marlon Mack's game to begin with. Even if he is asked to go in there, it would probably be a very ugly timeshare. This is Arizona we're talking about. But highlights. Oh, sorry.
Camp body, nothing more.
Camp body indeed, pushing Keontae Ingram. But let's talk about some of the injury highlights. One of the biggest ones out there as well, Javonte Williams is apparently the talk of the town. Benjamin Albright talking about him as the guy that everyone is shocked about him around the league about how quick he has recovered. He is going to actually play in the preseason according to Sean Payton. I listen, he's around that high-end RB3 price right now and probably a little bit higher in Dynasty, but not much. People have been really hands-off of this situation because of how serious the knee injury is, but at some point, are you going to adjust on that? And I've been buying the dip. I have him on quite a few best ball rosters so far at that like RB29, RB35 type of price because people are not drafting him. But are you coming around on Javonte Williams given the current encouraging reports that we're hearing?
No, I mean, I'm always going to default to guys coming off ACL injuries should expect their performance to dip the year after. There's always, there's the risk for cascade injuries, stuff like that, hamstrings, stuff like that, that are probably going to cost him games. Unless you are Adrian Peterson, and Javonte Williams is not Adrian Peterson, I am going to fade you that first year back off of ACL surgery. So it's within the time frame that he should be healthy by the time the season starts, because I think he was injured in week 4 last year, something like that. But yeah, I just by default, I don't want guys coming back the year after ACL surgery. Dynasty wise, he's not Breece Hall, right? He's not a top 5 dynasty running back that I'm willing to invest in either way. So I don't think the market is super high on him either, because I've been getting like offers where, I think somebody offered me Javonte Williams for like a top 10 wide. I think it was like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I was like, what? You got kidding me? No, that's absurd. There's no way I'm doing that. So yeah, I think people are trying to sell high. I'm not buying it. So.
Yeah, I people always try to do that when you get news like this. I'm in at the cost, and if it gets out of control, then I'll be out. But I love Javonte Williams as a prospect. I thought he had one of the best contact balance that I've seen in a prospect in quite some time. And I looked at him play and at UNC, and I really saw signs of Nick Chubb and how he manages his balance, and that's a high compliment that I'm paying there. And I hear everything you're saying about the injury, and we've talked about all summer about the injury timeline for guys like this to return to fantasy relevance. It's different, but if he's playing the preseason, I'm getting a bit more on board, and maybe even if it's a slower start, if I'm getting a full strength of Javonte Williams by week 6, week 7, or week 8, even maybe after the bye, whenever that is, I don't have the top of my head. That's something that's going to be a playoff difference. And if I could get him as my RB3, I can sit him outside my flex, play him in my flex if I need to. And the fact that they haven't added anyone outside of Samaje Perine who they added months ago, that's a sign of something for me. I would have expected Zeke to come in, Kareem Hunt to come in, Dalvin Cook probably not, but somebody else to be added to this backfield if he is serious. If Sean Payton was seriously worried about Javonte Williams' ability to get on the field, and dynasty wise, I just like how it opens obviously a sell window if you are trying to get out of it. But I'm closer to a buy than a sell because I believe in the talent, and I think eventually it will work out for him. And maybe that'll take another year. Maybe it'll take 8 weeks. But either way, I'm taking the cost at an RB3 type of price right now in drafts.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, this has nothing to do with the player, right? I like him as well as a prospect. This is just I am generally out on any running back coming off an ACL injury. Any player, to be honest, right? Like, we saw Chris Godwin struggle early last year. We saw Michael Gallup really never get it together, never become a factor last year. So that first year back off of ACL it's tough. You're not yourself. You're not 100%, at least not right away. So this is just purely, this is the way these injuries go.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. It's how football works, unfortunately. We're going to talk Kenneth Walker and that Seahawks situation right now because that was a very convoluted 48-hour span of news with Pete Carroll. But I just want to quickly remind people, this is a live show. We got plenty of live listeners right now. Be sure to drop some comments in that we could talk about throughout the show or at the end if we could help you with your Dynasty Leagues and whatever we can do. Because we're not just talking to the air, we're talking to you guys, and we want to help you guys out. And I know I speak for Joel on that one as well. We're here for
Absolutely.
You guys. And all these difficult situations, we're here to help you meander through it. I like that word. There's a comment right there. But yeah, let's why not? Let's answer this one right here. Let's just jump right off the show sheet already. 10-man standard, 1 QB league, no tight end spot. 201 and 203 for Chris Godwin. I will say Chris Godwin.
Yeah. In single QB, your draft picks are always going to be devalued, even though this is a 10-man, which kind of picks them up a little bit. But this is definitely Chris Godwin. He's way more than 2 seconds.
Any hesitation with the standard league there, or no? I don't, but I'm just wondering. No. Okay, wanted to ask that because I'm sure that's factored into
Godwin, and it's not close.
All right, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. I saw an amazing tweet by Dwayne McFarland talking about if Pete Carroll says you are out for a day, your season is over. If you're out indefinitely, however, he'll be back on the field by the time Pete Carroll gets another stick of gum. So, yeah, Kenneth Walker still sidelined for now. We'll see when he gets back. I don't think his week 1 availability is in question yet, but it's something worth watching. Zach Charbonnet was sidelined with a shoulder injury and returned a day or two later. So, how are you approaching this situation? Because this is one of those backfields and one of those battles that it's the redraft impact has such significant dynasty impact because the better Zach Charbonnet is in year 1, the far more he factors in year 2 and beyond, which obviously is the dynasty angle of this. So how are you approaching Seattle right now and the injuries that are almost piling up?
Yeah, we hit on this last week because the news of both of their injuries kind of hit right before we went on the air with Ryan and Marvin. And thanks to them for jumping in. And, I said at the time, this is kind of concerning because Pete Carroll is normally Mr. Optimistic, right? And he said they were both out indefinitely. It's like, well, that's, if he's not being all roses and sunshine, that's kind of scary. And then, then we hear, well, it's a groin strain for Walker. It's not that big a deal. He'll be ready by week 1. And Charbonnet's he's got a serious shoulder injury. And all right, this might be a buy opportunity for Charbonnet. And then by Thursday, he's back practicing. So much for that window. I don't know. Yeah, business as usual, I guess. It is what it is. And I said last week, if this keeps Walker out of preseason games and lessens his chance of injury in those games, this is probably a good thing.
Honestly, yeah. And it's not like Kenneth Walker is going to lose his job as much as Zach Charbonnet can star out, and Kenneth Walker will have a sizable role in this offense because he's a good player. And they also spent a pick on him as well, and people often forget that. But yeah, want to get your take on that one. Let's mill over. Well, milling over would be a topic, but thank you, Skippers, for I will fit that in this in this show. I want to bring up a quick IDP headline because you guys know me. I'm an IDP. I got a soft spot, as does Joel. Yannick Ngakoue, after months of milling around, I don't think that really works, but sitting around on the free agent market on the line, not getting a deal, waiting for the right situation, he finally found one in Chicago, signed a 1-year, $10.5 million contract to bookend the defensive line there in Chicago, a team that was tied for dead last in sacks per game last year, just 1.2 per game. It was pitiful. And you got Ngakoue coming in, a guy that has never had less than 8 sacks in a season. Now, it's a lovely title to say there. However, him saying that is also he's also been on. I just had the number. I believe it's 5 different teams in the 5 or 4 different teams in the last 9 NFL seasons that he's been in. So there's a reason.
It's probably 9 teams since you left for Australia.
Yeah, it's oh my god, yeah, yeah. By now he's not even on Chicago, but yeah, it's that there's a reason for that, and his win rate has always been a little bit lower than his sacks indicate. He only had 6 recorded QB knockdowns according to Pro Football Reference, which is a very weird low number for somebody that has 8 sacks on a season. And he's had 130 pressure campaign since his rookie season, which was an amazing rookie season with Jacksonville, but a long, long time ago in 2018. So any IDP expectations for Yannick Ngakoue before we jump into our look inside offensive side of the ball?
A couple things. Has Ngakoue been any good since he left Jacksonville? Is there
It's been what I told him. It's been 8 sacks,
right.
9 TFLs, 8 TFLs. If you pick the right week, last year he had a lot of half sack games. So it was just like, you're getting 6 points on the week. It's not great.
He's been more name than production for a while. Probably, like you said, probably since his rookie year, to be honest. And the other thing is, I think this is a terrible spot for him, right? Because Chicago has nothing else to focus on in their pass rush. Their pass rush is god awful. So everyone's just going to slide their protection to Ngakoue. What's he going to do if he's getting double teamed literally every time, every pass snap? I would much rather someone like that go to a team where there's some other options and he can get one-on-ones.
It's a bad defensive line. My only pushback is that I wasn't wowed with the Colts last year out there. And I love Kwity Paye, but he missed 8 games last season. He missed a lot of time last year. And
you got something like Buckner to kind of push the middle.
Yes, you have Buckner and you have Grover Stewart, both defensive tackles that are much better than what Chicago has. I have some hope for DeMarcus Walker being a nice versatile piece on that line. And they drafted Dominique Robinson last year, who did not do much in his rookie season, but they're hoping obviously they can build on it. So I'm expecting more of the same is the gist here. I'm not expecting some big leap. I'd be closer to projecting lower numbers than higher numbers, but he's going to get a lot of snaps because there really is not much to compete with him there. And they gave him $10 million. This wasn't a veteran minimum deal, and it's almost all guaranteed as well. They did want him, and Ngakoue has been waiting for the right spot.
The other problem is, right, that's going to be a bad team, and there's probably going to be a lot of running in the second half by the opposition. So how many sack chances is he going to get? Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I don't know if the Bears will be worse than the Colts were last year, but it might be the same ball.
That's probably going to be very similar. Yep.
And Yannick has not been that so far. So away from the IDP and into the Philadelphia Eagles here, we are going to be talking about them because the Look Inside series has transferred on over here. And I want to start with the backfield. I want to talk about Rashaad Penny. I want to talk about DeAndre Swift, the trade that sent Swift over after the Lions spent a first-round pick on Jahmyr Gibbs, the signing of Rashaad Penny. You had Kenny Gainwell there, and you had no more Miles Sanders, who's coming off a massive workload season that saw him land a good contract with the Carolina Panthers. So when you look at this backfield, especially from a dynasty perspective, because we have guys on 1-year contracts, what are you expecting in 2023?
I expect them both to have value. I don't expect at any point to know which week I should be starting.
That's a scary situation for fantasy then.
Yeah, I think we said for the past 3 weeks, everybody's better in best ball, but this is kind of be kind of a nightmare in managed leagues. I think we'll get to, when we get to the next point, I think this is a team that's going to have to throw more than they did last year. They're not going to have as many milk the clock opportunities. So maybe slight edge to Swift. But yeah, I expect that to be a headache all year long.
Yeah. And it's a really, the big thing with Swift, right, is everyone talks about the pass catching. That's always been Swift's, apparent greatest strength. And then he joins this Eagles team that was through the run back at one of the lowest rates last year. It was just 12%, while wide receiver was all the way up at 69%, which was number one in the league. It was very much A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, a touch of Dallas Goedert, and that's it. So you look at where does Swift fit in? Does Jalen Hurts start checking down? Because I don't think that's going to happen. And if we're talking about splitting carries for a team that will be getting vultured by Jalen Hurts on plenty of occasions, which one would you rather have at cost? I'll quickly pull up their ADPs, but loosely saying, are you more in on one than the other?
I would say the best hope for clarity is Penny getting hurt and Swift getting the job, but Swift is just as likely to get hurt as Penny is. So I guess I would kind of defer to Penny. I assume he's going later than Swift. So at cost, I would definitely rather have Penny if that's the case. I think I would probably rather have Penny just because I know what his role is probably going to be.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of breaking it down. I'm trying to pull up the Dynasty ADP without every time I do it, it switches me away. But standard scoring, because that's the only one that's allowing me to see here. It has Rashaad Penny all the way down at the RB 51, which again, Dynasty ADP right now is notoriously
unfriendly.
Unfriendly, inaccurate for us to drive at, but let's call it a double-digit guy, and you're obviously still paying up a bid for Swift. In the one-year nature, I'll ask this question then: is either one on the roster next year?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I don't like as a zero RB guy. I love this. Like I love uncertainty. I love both these guys. These are both talented backs who are getting kicked down the board because of uncertainty, and that's the zero RB mantra is embrace the uncertainty. So yeah, this is awesome for that. For if you're not that kind of person, then this is kind of terrifying. So avoid if you must.
Yeah, it's a scary situation because we don't know, but it's also a situation with one of the top scoring offenses in the league.
No,
so
the best offensive line in the league.
Yeah, if we're going to gamble on a backfield for zero RB purposes, or even just punt and just take Rashaad Penny, you're betting on someone getting in the end zone at the very least. And we know if Rashaad Penny's healthy. Listen, I don't know if you know this, Joel. He was number one in true yards per carry last year. And if you ignore the fact that he only played 5 games, it makes it even more impressive. But he's always
if you go back to last year, right? Go back to Seattle, like in redraft, Kenneth Walker was like a waiver wire darling because nobody wanted him because Rashaad Penny kind of ran away with that job in training camp and in the first 4 weeks of the year, and then he got hurt. And then, everybody was jumping on the Kenneth Walker bandwagon as well. They should have, but obviously in Dynasty Walker was drafted, so that situation didn't exist. But yeah, Penny was killing it that first, he ran away with that job. So I expect him to do well. And he's basically free, right? If you need a running back, just kind of plug into your Dynasty. What does he cost? A third, maybe?
People are scared. People are scared.
Yeah, nobody wants him. So if you can find a manager who's got, running back depth, and they're probably willing to just offload him for, basically nothing.
Yeah. And curious enough, and I wonder if we see more of it this year, the Eagles ran 21 personnel last year, which is 2 running backs on the field at the same time. Now, that's partially in my eyes because Miles Sanders couldn't be a pass blocker or a pass catcher to save his life. And maybe Rashaad Penny is closer to that, so it doesn't make that much of a difference. But I do wonder if we're going to see a little bit more of that. And I have a soft spot for Kenny Gainwell. Is he out of the picture, special team, backup type of role?
I can't imagine he ever gets enough volume to be startable. And that's not a guy you want to carry on a best ball roster either. So
Oh no.
Yeah, I like the player. That terrible situation.
Yeah. And for more on DeAndre Swift, Joshua Hudson, our lovely founder here, wrote a wonderful profile on it at clubfantasyffl.com. So be sure to check out that article on the site again at clubfantasyffl.com. But let's talk about the rest of this room. And I talked about a little bit before the receivers. It's DeVonta Smith, AJ Brown, and nothing else there because how much they ran 11 personnel and they just dominated the field. Both guys combined for around a 40% target share, and lining up in 11 personnel, fifth most in the league, that certainly helps its wide receivers. So I want to ask the Dynasty ADP question here. Would you prefer AJ Brown at wide receiver 4? Would you rather DeVonta Smith at wide receiver 16? That's ADP from Fantasy Pros, which again, somewhat inaccurate, but give or take on both sides there. Which one would you prefer to have on your Dynasty or pay for in your startup?
So let's go big picture, right? This is a team that, like last year, I think they had halftime leads in like all but 4 of their games, or the games that Jalen Hurts started. They had so many games where they just ran milk clock the second half because they didn't even have to, they were so far ahead, it didn't matter. They could just run clock. They didn't even have to throw the ball. It's a very different team, right? They lost both their coordinators. They lost players on their defense at all 3 levels who were important, right? Javon Hargrave, TJ Edwards, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, like right up the middle of their defense. They lost players at all 3 levels. That's tough to overcome. They've got players that we like, but they're kind of rookies, second-year guys. So there's going to be questions there. They're going from maybe the easiest schedule in the league to maybe the hardest. They've got a tough division. They've got tough out-of-division games. I think this is a team that's going to throw a lot, significantly more than they did last year. This team is my pick to kind of be the Dolphins of last year, where you had 2 top 10 receivers on the same team. So to answer your question, I would rather have DeVonta Smith at wide receiver 16 because I think he's going to be firmly inside the top 10.
I don't hate that take whatsoever because he's a great player and somebody that had a 27% target share last year, 9th in yards per route run, 7th in yards after catch. I could go on and on about DeVonta Smith because he's a great player. And we saw it even in the Super Bowl, toasted L'Jarius Sneed for 7 receptions and 100 yards. Again, the best cornerback arguably the best cornerback the Chiefs had to offer in that game. And it's such high usage because of how central they are to this offense. He only had 6 games under 90% of snaps and 1 under 80. And I'm sure that was probably due to him getting banged up, and we just don't remember because it was a 1-week thing that didn't bleed into the next one. So I'm in as well. I love the cost. I'm consistently in, and especially when we talk about what we were just talking about before. We have so many questions about this running game. Well, maybe they just pass more. And it wasn't like Jalen Hurts was above like the Lamar Jackson ridiculous touchdown efficiency. It was 4.8%. That's close to the league average nowadays. Like 22 passing touchdowns could easily grow for Jalen Hurts. And that's something that can certainly help out, the receivers and especially, Dallas Goedert, but we'll talk about him in a second.
Real quick before you go on, DeVonta Smith's targets following the week 9 game at Houston. That was a Thursday game, right? So those are always wonky. His targets after that: 8, 9, 9, 8, 8, 8, 12, 13, 8, 10, 3 in the San Francisco game, which they didn't have quarterback, so the game was over at halftime, and then 9 in the Super Bowl. That's elite target share. Elite. Like you put that on, that's like 150. That's basically almost Tyreek Hill level, target share. That's I love AJ Brown. Don't get me wrong. If I can get DeVonta Smith at wide receiver 16, I am jumping all over that.
He turned 24 years old halfway through last season. Yeah. DeVonta Smith is one of, I feel like even through a Super Bowl type of run, I feel like he's still very undervalued in the public light of what he's able to do just because of how great AJ Brown is. And on the topic of AJ Brown, I was doing my show prep for this one. There are not many analytics he is not in the top 10 for. He had such a special 2022 season. But I will tell you one that he wasn't in the top 25 for. And it leads into the exact point I'm so glad you brought up before. He was 28th in routes run. They're like, would you imagine that for somebody that is obviously running routes as much as they are? It's just that they weren't passing the ball a lot. They were
Right.
22nd in a pass rate, and they didn't need to. They ran the ball plenty, and AJ Brown wasn't a top 25 route runner when he in just pure routes run. So there is growth potential here for the entire Eagles passing offense, and we know that if anything, maybe they keep Jalen Hurts a little bit more in the pocket now that he's got his extension too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
like AJ Brown has always been an elite efficiency guy, right? You go back to his rookie year where he had like 58 catches for like 900 yards or 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns or something like that. And literally everyone in fantasy is like, oh, no, he can't repeat that efficiency. He can't repeat that efficiency. There's no way. He's an outlier. And he's just done it every year of his career. So, and now he's in a better passing. He went from a heavy run, offense in Tennessee to obviously a more pass-centric offense, even though they didn't have to pass as much last year. But yeah, is that any surprise whatsoever that he's super efficient? It shouldn't be.
No, he's one of those special players. I know that's
He's made a career out of it, just being insanely efficient
every single year, despite poor quarterback play from Tennessee and inconsistent play calling from Tennessee. But now he's found a home where he doesn't have either of that. But let's talk about the tight end now. Listen, Dallas Goedert has long been my guy. Love Dallas Goedert. 84% route participation last year, 19% target share. So that was 7th in the league right there. So it's good. It's good. But really where he fell short last season from hitting the upper echelon that we want to see from tight ends, touchdowns. He only had 3 touchdowns last year. Is that going to happen again? I certainly don't think so.
Yeah, we've basically spent this entire segment saying that they're going to throw more. So Goddard's going to be a beneficiary. He missed like 5 games last year or something like that. So take, yeah. 4 or 5 games. Yeah. So yeah, I once you get past Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, I would I'd take Goddard as willingly as I would Kittle or Hawkinson or Pitts, any of those guys.
And only 10 red zone targets last year. And that's part of why it only turned to 3 touchdowns. But even then, I mean, you might expect 10 red zone targets to turn into 5 touchdowns, and 12 fantasy points can turn into, 12 more fantasy points can make the difference. Not second again to Kelce, mind you, but it will get him up there. And I do like Dallas Goedert. If I'm going with the mid-round tight end move, which I don't always do, but this year I find myself more and more into it with where Darren Waller is going, where Dallas Goedert's going. Again, this is a dynasty show, but I'm talking about redraft ADP there. I am open to Dallas Goedert's outcome there. And he waited his time, man. He waited for Zach Ertz to be out, and now he's thriving. I'm so happy about that. But I want to quickly do an ADP game with you here with Dallas Goedert. Again, the tight end 6 going off the board. So, other names around him. I'm going to say a name, and it goes up against Dallas Goedert. I want you to tell me which one you would rather have on your dynasty roster. Keenan Allen.
Is tight end premium or not?
No. I'll say no.
Keenan Allen.
James Cook.
Goedert.
Jameson Williams.
Goedert.
Alvin Kamara.
Goedert.
Marquise Hollywood Brown.
In non-tight end premium, I would take Hollywood.
Okay, so I guess that means his ADP is right around the good area, but more or less that's where he's going. And if you do want a tight end, that's a pretty good value to have.
I'll say of those guys, like Keenan Allen and Hollywood are close. I would take him like well above James Cook and Jameson Williams. I wouldn't even be considering those guys if I was looking at Goedert.
Yeah, and even then it goes down to a bit of a team construction look, because if you're not building a team that you really want to win in, this season, you're not even looking at Keenan Allen either, and things like that. So, yeah, and we touched on Jalen Hurts before, but I just want to get this on record. Where is he in your QB ranks for Dynasty Angle and Superflex? Is he your 103 overall?
He is as high as you want to take him. Okay. If you want to take him 1 overall, I wouldn't question that whatsoever.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think we saw more than enough last year, and if we're talking about an increase in work this year, that could look pretty nuts. We're talking about everyone wants to talk about the upside of Anthony Richardson. We might see the upside of Jalen Hurts because we did not see his ceiling yet, which is insane to think about because of 4.8% touchdown percentage. That will be higher at some point of his career. He will have an outlandish number, especially if the running game is really going to be, questionable as compared to what Miles Sanders was able to provide some stability last year. So, any other long shot names you want to bring up on this Eagles team? Again, we talked about being really centered around those guys, the Goedert, the Brown, the DeVonta Smith, and there's really not many prospects beyond that. But any names you want to bring up?
No, I mean that's why I love those guys so much. This is a very skinny target tree, right? This is AJ Brown and DeVonta Smith, and throw in some Goedert, and that's really it. So this is an offense this is the offense you love, right? Because you know where the ball is going, and you know that those hands are elite. So yeah, there's really who else is there? Didn't they sign Olamide Zaccheaus? Any interest in there?
No. Okay, never mind. I regret asking. J2K asked right now, what about Fields? Is Fields in that Hurts, Mahomes, Josh Allen category for you yet? Not for me.
No. He hasn't proven it yet, right? Does he have QB1 ceiling? Sure, right? He could basically pull what Lamar did in 2019, but yeah,
he did
I'm not going to bet on him over those. I'm not a Fields hater by any means, right? But I'm not going to bet on him beating those other three guys out.
Yeah, the difference between him and the other guys in my eyes is there's a world Justin Fields is not starting for Chicago next year. And there's not that world remotely close for Hurts, Allen, Mahomes, all those other guys. Stephen White also throws out in the chat, we're going to jump to KC right here in a second after this one. Would you guys give up a first for Brandon Aiyuk if you're not contending this year? He's got a few extra firsts to play with, and he hopes to be relevant in 2024. I kind of want to know if this is super flex, to be honest. If it's one QB, I will happily send a first for Brandon Aiyuk. And if it's not one QB, I probably still will, but I want some semblance of where that first is going to be. Because if I think it could be anywhere in the top half, it is super flex, he says. What are your thoughts right there, Joel?
I would want to know. I would want to have an idea of where that pick is going to be. I traded a first for Aiyuk just as kind of a portfolio play, just because Aiyuk wasn't a guy I liked very much coming out. So I didn't end up with a lot. So now I'm kind of trying to buy back in.
I'm the exact same way.
So
and I have massively become one.
I'm a little bit light in my holdings. I'd like to be a little bit higher. If it's projected late, I would take the shot on Aiyuk. I think it's good. I think we talked about it last week. I think he and Debo may be ships crossing in the night. I think he's going to maybe take over the target lead this year, the target share lead. So, if it's a late pick, I would do it.
Yep, I'm on board with that. Let's jump on over from a wide receiver room that we know everything about to a wide receiver room we probably don't want to know anything about, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs.
Exact opposite.
The exact opposite, because while Dallas Goedert was happy to pick up the scraps, Travis Kelce eats everything in Kansas City and spits out the remainders for a hodgepodge of wide receivers that would not be better than a wide receiver 3 on other teams if they really wanted them to be. So I'll ask you the question, Joel. Pick your poison. Pick your wide receiver. We know Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to run routes, and we don't really care about him because we know what he is. But the unknown guys of the Rashee Rice, the Skyy Moore, the Kadarius Toney. God. If you had to pick one right now, let's say the price is all similar because they kind of are. Which one do you want the most?
See, here's my theory on Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
It's hard to play receiver with him, right? Because he's so good. He may be the best off-platform, off-schedule quarterback in the history of the league ever. And I don't think that's hyperbole at all, right? He's that damn good. It's really hard to play receiver with him if you don't know where he's going, what he's doing. If you haven't been in that system with him for a long time, it's tough, right? And you had Tyreek Hill, who played with him forever. You have Travis Kelce, who's been with him for like 9 years, basically since Andy Reid started there. If you're not those guys, it's really tough to get a significant market. You had Juju come in last year and basically do nothing MVS come in last year, and MVS has always done nothing, so that was not a surprise. But if I had to pick one, I would say Toney, just because he has some experience with him.
Oh, to the dark side you go. Go no.
Now,
man.
I like Rashee Rice. I liked him as a prospect. I thought this is a situation where I would like him more than the NFL did, and I was kind of surprised that he got that draft capital. I'm still really nervous about rookie. That's a tough offense to break into, right? It's a really intricate offense. It takes time. It takes practice. We saw Skyy Moore could not get on the field last year. For as much as people like Skyy Moore, I wasn't one of them, but a lot of people liked him a lot. Like, he was going in the late first in rookie drafts last year, easily. Like, a lot of people, he could not get on the field at all. Like, he couldn't get snaps. So as much as I want to believe Rashee Rice can do that, but I got to see it before I'll believe it. So I'll take Toney even with the injury, just because I've seen him play with Patrick Mahomes.
Is ultimately your answer none, or are you actively looking for Kadarius Toney? Because the price is,
no,
if
I'm
you
not actively looking for
it, then the price is very low.
No, the answer is Travis Kelce. And
right, you know what I'm asking here, Joel. You know what I'm doing. I'm asking beyond the obvious one. We're trying to help.
I don't want to have to start any of those guys, right? I don't trust any of those guys. And week to week, what are you going to get out of those guys? Again, none of these guys are going to be reliable weekly starts in a managed league.
Sure. This is in a dynasty aspect, though. You have long benches. If it shows enough in a season, maybe you're looking at year 3 for someone like Skyy Moore. A full year 2/3 with Kadarius Toney in the system, and maybe you're more excited because the best one gets an extension next year outside of the guys on the rookie deals. And there is Justyn Ross to factor in there. A lot of Justyn Ross love out of there.
The Twitter darling that he is.
Yeah,
that's fine. You can have him. I have 0 Justyn Ross shares, and I'm not nervous about that whatsoever.
Yeah, I won't. I have 0. I wasn't nervous. I'm still not nervous. Maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit, and I'll tell you why I am a little bit. It's because of how little faith I have in the rest of them. Because I'm going to provide my answer. Skyy Moore is the easy one for me. I'm just going to say that, because while you might disparage my guy out there, he's not even my guy, but this young man out there who's about my age, crazy enough. Kadarius Toney wasn't out with Mahomes either. The man ran 10 routes or more in 3 of 10 games with the Chiefs. He ran 19 combined in the 3 playoff games when they had not much left. Everyone was on the last legs. They traded for the man. They want him to be involved. 19 routes. That's listen. I get the idea, and I'm with you on the. It takes a while to learn the Andy Reid system. You're going from one system to another. He's probably not the type of guy that's picking up the playbook quickly, given his track record from college. But it's something that he hasn't done it. And I think Kadarius Toney has been – I just don't think he's that good at the game. I've never thought he was that good at the game. I think he's emotionally immature. We saw him block a cash on Twitter the other day. It's just a ticking time bomb that I don't know the reward enough for, that I'm not willing to pay. And Skyy Moore was a prospect I liked more than I liked Kadarius Toney, despite the difference in draft capital. And – hell, he looked great on that punt return to the Super Bowl, man. It was awesome. It was awesome. But Skyy Moore would be my pick outside of the obvious Travis Kelce if I had to pick there. But
to be clear, I'm not a Kadarius Toney fan at all.
You said. I am mailing you a Kadarius Toney signed jersey, like the Giants. Even I'll find a way, because you are number 1 of the fan club now.
Number 1, clearly.
Yeah, Scampers, I don't appreciate that type of slander in the chat either. He had plenty of opportunities to fumbles. If he's fumbling, that means he has his hand on the football. And
he did legitimately cost them a game last year in Indianapolis.
Yeah, well, we don't talk about that. Those are rookie struggles. Remember when Kareem Hunt fumbled in his first game ever? And we all said it was going to be bad. And then he scored 30 more fantasy points that week and crushed me. I remember that game. But couple interesting stats with Kansas City. we talk about, we obviously know last year they didn't throw the receiver. They didn't have anybody that they wanted to. It was Travis Kelce. Only the Ravens threw a lower percentage of passes to the wide receiver last year. But I want to bring up also, when they still had Tyreek, it was still a very low number in the year prior in 2021. It's a very high 12 personnel sets and a lot of Noah Gray usage, a lot of the two tight end looks. Before Noah Gray, it was Demetrius Harris and things like that. There was always a number 2 tight end as opposed to a number 2 receiver. And Tyreek might have just been the exception to the rule. And there's a very real world that it is none of the above. It is just Travis Kelce. And we're playing this mind game just because we want Patrick Mahomes as running mate. But I think it could be Skyy Moore. I've made a few trades for him that I'm going to bring up in a bit. But I want to bring up those numbers because I found it very interesting that the receiver usage was not significantly higher when they had a target hog in Tyreek Hill. But Travis Kelce, let's just talk about it. It's a dynasty situation because he's old, but he's great. He had 10 drops last year, Joel. That was number 1 among tight ends.
Oh, no.
So done, busted, over is what I'm hearing here.
Terrible.
Yeah, terrible. But what he also did, which was also number 1 in the league, he had 30 red zone targets. That was more than not just tight ends. That was more than any single player. And they haven't brought in anybody to change that. They're still not going to take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' ball out of his hands in the red zone. So yeah, Kelce's as safe as it comes. But dynasty, the question always is, where does he rank because of the age? And eventually the fall off will have to come. But when is it? Where are you ranking him in your dynasty? Is he still your tight end 1, or is he a little bit below?
Yeah. So I wrote an article about Travis Kelce and the history of elite tight ends, which you can find right there on Club Fantasy. And if you go back, like the elite tight ends that have made it to Kelce's age, Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Shannon Sharp, Jason Witten, they have maintained a very high, percentage of their age 33 production, which is, what I based it on, into their mid to late 30s. Like, Tony Gonzalez played, Tony Gonzalez at age like 36 would have been the tight end 2 last year, right? He was that good. So, and we've heard Travis Kelce come out and say, I'm going to go as long as I can until the wheels come off. There's nothing that's kind of driving him saying, maybe 1 more year and then I'm done. He's going to play as long as he can. So I expect him to be this damn good for, as long as he wants to be. And so, I'm not worried about him. I have a lot of Travis Kelce shares and I get a lot of terrible trade offers. Oh, he's only got 1 more year. Like, if you tell me you want to get Travis Kelce because he only has 1 more year, I'm immediately
don't send the trade.
Don't even send it. Yeah. Because you're not going to get anywhere with you, just wasting your clicks. I expect him to be this good, or a significant percentage of this good for the next 2 to 3 years. This is not a 1-year guy.
Kelce had more 10-plus yard catches than Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, T. Higgins, and DeVonta Smith last year.
Right.
He
was the wide receiver 5 at tight end.
Let me go on because it gets crazier. He had 15 more than Mark Andrews did last year, who was in second among tight ends. And 15 is the exact number that Kyle Pitts had all year. So that's arguably your dynasty tight end 2 and tight end 3 right there, and Kelce combines for them. So it's nuts what he's able to do. And truthfully, even if it is 1 year, the difference he provides in 1 year is significant enough to warrant it. I understand an argument for Mark Andrews being ahead of him. I can get behind that almost, but in fact, I am behind. I do think I would take Mark Andrews ahead of Kelce in startups, but I mean, he's strong in my 2 ahead of Kyle Pitts and others behind that just because of how special he is. And, the points you made in your article, again, you can check out at clubfantasyffl.com.
Just real quick, you said, just think about that. You said Travis Kelce had 30 red zone targets last year, right? Did the Texans have 30 red zone targets amongst their entire team?
Did they go to the red zone?
That's an insane number. 30. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane.
The guy is as there is no more certain ticket to the playoffs than Travis Kelce. He gives you that much of an advantage. If I'm playing for this year, if I'm not just completely punting this year, which, in most cases you shouldn't be, I want as much of him as I can. He is probably the most valuable player in fantasy.
Yeah, it's a difference maker at the position, and we've spent all summer talking about it. So I want to quickly touch on the running back room before we do our trades, and we want to round it out because we got about five minutes left or so. I don't think we're going to hit it, but let's go. Isiah Pacheco is currently sidelined, expected to be back, I believe, on August 20th or so, according to Andy Reid. 25th in red zone touches last year, despite being in a limited role for half the year. He wasn't really playing, but still found himself in the top 25. He was the RB18 from week 10 onward in PPR. That jumps up to RB14 in standard because he does not catch passes. Is he a flash in the plan or not? Because they really have not added to this room that much.
Unless and until you tell me that Isiah Pacheco had laser eye surgery, I have zero interest. Right? Yeah, I've never seen a running back run into the backside of his offensive line more than Pacheco did. And it's awesome that he runs with his hair on fire, and that's great. But find a hole, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, and
he's a terrible running back. He's just a bad player.
And we've seen we have enough sample size of Patrick Mahomes having elite seasons, the Chiefs doing whatever they want to do, and the running game doesn't mean squat to begin with.
When was the last time this offense produced an elite running back? Never.
Spencer Ware.
I mean, you have to go back to basically Brian Westbrook in the Andy Reid tree, but he didn't have Patrick Mahomes at the time. This is an offense that runs around Patrick. This is the most, this is a team that's had the highest passing expectation, neutral pass expectation for basically the entire time that Andy Reid's been there. There's no running back, unless they trade for Jonathan Taylor. I don't care about their running. I don't care about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't care about Deneric Prince. I don't care about anyone there. They're not going to get enough opportunities. They're not going to get enough volume. This is a Patrick Mahomes offense. I don't care.
Yep, I am on board 100%. We're going to jump to our Do Better trade reviews of this segment here. Talk about some of the trades we've seen going on in our leagues and our thoughts on them. We got several to talk about. Quick question in the chat there from Mr. Scampers. Where would you be slotting in Jaylen Warren among backups in Dynasty PPR? I don't exactly have backup rankings, so I'm trying to do this on the top of my head. I mean, probably a top 5 number. Almost definitely, just because I know how Mike Tomlin uses it. And if Najee Harris were to go down, Jaylen Warren will get all the touches behind a Steelers offensive line that will be much, much better than it has been the last 2 to 3 years. But yeah, I mean, it's a little bit tough for me to come up with that off the top of my head. I'm trying to think about backups, but we don't have
a RB guy. I like him a lot. Like, he's a guy I want. If that's the way I'm building my roster. But yeah, the problem is, like you said, Tomlin likes to run with a bell cow back, but if I think we saw enough from him that if Najee Harris should miss a game or two, I would be very comfortable slotting him into that role because he's going to get a ton of carries. And I think their offensive line should be better this year.
Yeah, definitely should be. I love Isaac Samalo is going to make a big difference at guard. And among RBs in general, which is really how I should have read that question in the first place. It's exactly what you said. I'll target him in 0 RB, but I don't buy he'll have a role. I just don't think it's going to be fantasy relevant. It'll be the 30-35% snap type of thing. If he gets a touchdown, which he won't score many of them, you're going to be happy, but you're not going to be able to predict him. I think he'll need the injury to make it work, because Najee Harris is going to get the workload. He is the guy there, and is a good player in my opinion. If
you are comfortable with a 0 or hero RB style dynasty build and you just want to rotate through, he's a guy I want to have on my roster.
Yep. Let's run through these trades that we've seen going on. This is one I made myself. I traded Jakobi Meyers for Skyy Moore and a 4th. What are your thoughts there?
Regardless of production, I would rather have Skyy Moore because I think I can trade him for more. You're never going to get anything for Jakobi Meyers, and there are people like you who will trade something for Skyy Moore.
I
think he's got more. I don't think either of the guys have a lot of production value, but trade value, I think you could probably get more. Like, Skyy Moore is a good preseason game away from being valuable. So.
Yeah, that's true. I think Skyy Moore can do what Juju did last year, and if he puts that type of stat line up, we're all going to be calling for a 3rd-year leap, and at that point, his value is going to be a lot higher. And Jakobi Meyers, it's a shame, man. It's such a shame he landed in Vegas because I like him. I think he's a good player, but he's the type of guy that gets faded out of fantasy relevance because of that landing spot, in my
I
opinion.
think he's a good fit with Garoppolo there. I still think he's going to get
In theory, yeah.
Adams.
Because he's not taking deep
Devontae
shots.
Adams is a better fit. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem is Davante Adams is so good. And maybe he won't be on the team forever because of how unhappy he is. But Davis Mills and CJ Stroud and Superflex for Justin Fields. This I'm slapping the do better trade on. I saw that one and I was
this is
floored.
I liked Stroud as a prospect, but Fields is doing it and has done it. So this is easily Fields. Davis Mills doesn't matter, right? He's a backup to CJ Stroud. So this is basically Stroud for Fields straight up. That doesn't make sense.
Saw from at Dynasty Bob FF on Twitter, who got Fields. So good for you, man.
Yeah.
Another
Awesome,
one another one I saw from the very famous Luke Sawhook, Trevor Lawrence for Najee Harris and 2 2024 firsts. This is obviously a super flex we're talking about here. This is the price to get Trevor Lawrence, and it's probably on the cheaper side. So I'm kind of willing to pay that for Lawrence. But it's hard to do it without knowing where those firsts are, which I know is what you're thinking.
No, I don't think it matters. But unless I knew for sure that like one of them was super early and one was probably middling. Like if I knew one was really good, then maybe I'd still rather have Lawrence.
Yeah,
right?
He's still playing the game.
Is an elite. This is a top 5-6 quarterback in Superflex. If this is the price you have to pay, you have to do it easily.
Yeah. And listen, I just talked about how much I like Najee, but you're moving a running back for a quarterback here and 2 unknown pieces that aren't you're not going to yield anything for some time anyway. So yeah, you're going to lock in your quarterback spot for a decade, and you're going to be very happy about that. Next one up here, Kyle Pitts and a 2024 first for Irv Smith and Garrett Wilson. Thoughts?
This one's tough.
This one is tough, and I don't know for sure if this is tight end premium or anything like this. I saw this one at Andy_Buckler on Twitter. I love the stuff Andy puts out there. So definitely follow there.
This would have to be tight end premium for Pitts for the Pitts side to like if this is non-tight end premium, then it's Garrett Wilson. Like I shit on Irv Smith last week, so I'm not going to go back there this week. He has zero value in this trade. So yeah, if this is tight end premium, it's a discussion. If it's not, then it's Garrett Wilson all day. I still think it's probably Garrett Wilson, and I'm lower on Garrett Wilson than most, but I think given Pitts' value right now and the uncertainty, we've seen issues, questions about whether he's even 100% at this point. So yeah, I think this is probably the Garrett Wilson side, but it's close.
Yep, you know me on Garrett Wilson, man. I am all in. I got my foot on the gas. I got cement block on the gas. All I'm doing is steering. I'm steering that Garrett Wilson train all the way to a championship. So
I had no question what side you'd be on.
Yeah, no, I'm an open book when it comes to him. But Tyler Algier, last one here. Tyler Algier, Rachaad White, Bryce Young, and a 2024 second for Trey Lance, Breece Hall, JSN, and a 2025 second. So big chunky trade here. Superflex here as well. This trade went down we saw it what's it called? We saw it in this was in our league. This was the a league that we shared that somebody
popped up in a league chat that we're both in.
Yeah, and I think we both simultaneously slapped the do better button very quickly. As soon as we saw it, just like that. I gotta stop doing that, but I am using my DJ powers that Josh gave me earlier. So you want to confidently say which side we want here?
This is all about the Breece Hall and JSN side. I like Bryce Young, but I don't think he's like I think Bryce Young's ceiling is like Dak Prescott. And I think that's a reasonable ceiling for him. I think that's the place he could get, but I don't know that he has the ability to get to the Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow kind of tier, and that's what you would really need for this trade to make sense. Plus, you're getting a quarterback back in Trey Lance, who's going to play somewhere over the next 2 years. So yeah, this is pretty easily the Breece Hall and JSN side.
Yeah, I like Bryce Young a lot, but Breece Hall and JSN is really something I can't pass up on in most deals. Especially JSN. I am so excited for him to hit the field, man. Seattle is going to be such a fun offense to watch this year if they can stay healthy. If they can be out, if all of them can be no worse than out indefinitely, the Seattle Seahawks will have the best season that they've had in some time. But that is our show. That is our lineup here today. Next week, most people are going to be at the Expo. I will not be able to make it this year. I know Joel is going to be there because he's in Canton, but we're still going to be coming at you next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, because we're always trying to give you guys your Dynasty fix. And next week, we're going to be doing a Dynasty mock draft. Really the last one we're talking about. We talked about as well, Dynasty ADP being a little bit hard to track down. We're going to provide it to you in real time. It's going to be rapid fire. It's going to be fun. I'll try to get some other people in the industry to join. It'll be chef's kiss, Joel. It's going to be fantastic. But any other final send-offs you want to say for our lovely viewers out there?
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. A lot of chatter in the chat, so we appreciate that. Yeah, like you said, the Expo is this week. We're excited. I live right here in Canton, so this is like my favorite time of the year. I get to go meet a lot of great people, talk to a lot of great people, see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time, or haven't seen since last year, I guess. So looking forward to that. Should be a fun weekend, and we got a lot going on at Club Fantasy. I know you're going to hit up right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it's football season, and anybody going to the Expo, be sure to ask Joel for a tour and use him as your free tour guide, because I'm sure he loves giving tours around Canton and just stroll, look at this. This is give the history lesson of the city. So be sure to do that, all of you lovely people, and of course, be sure to check us out on social, Club Fantasy FFL at Club Fantasy FFL, and obviously all the amazing articles that we were just talking about. We talked about Josh's DeAndre Swift piece for the Eagles, and we talked about the Chiefs, which was done by I don't know if we had the Chiefs one up actually, unless I'm missing it. But either way, a lot of good stuff that we have on the site. Be sure to check it out at clubfantasyffl.com, and of course us at Twitter, because we self-plug all the time. At the Joel Wirth on Twitter, and myself at Michael__Sicoli. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a blast. And again, thank you guys for the comments in the chat. Always good to help everyone out. And we're going to see you guys next week, Sunday.
Before we sign off, real quick, this week we got Women of Fantasy Football kicking off. So get online, find Josh on Twitter, and get your raffle tickets for those sweet jerseys. Yeah, definitely something to check out as well on Twitter, because those giveaways are amazing. And why not sign up? Because you guys are all lucky out there. I know you out there, John, watching this. You're gonna win. You're gonna win all those raffles. So be sure to sign up. I've always wanted to do that, but remember, all you lovely people, Dynasty is like a disco ball, keep spinning year round. So join the club every Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern, right here with Club Fantasy FFL.